Think you're tough? Prove it, Salvatore Greco said. And Nora Wren set the chipped blue coffee pot down between the Mafia boss and the cup he was about to drink from. The whole diner went quiet enough to hear the old neon sign buzzing in the rain. It happened at 3:07 in the morning at Juniper Diner, the narrow 24-hour place wedged between a pawn shop with steel shutters and a laundromat whose dryers never stopped thumping. The graveyard crowd had already thinned to one sleeping trucker, two college boys whispering over fries, Mrs. Decker from booth 6 with a crossword, and Gus in the kitchen rinsing bacon grease off the flat top. Nora had been working 11 hours on shoes with cardboard under the insoles. Her apron smelled like coffee, lemon cleaner, and the faint onion bite of the soup she had reheated for a regular who was too proud to ask for dinner. She had seen dangerous men before. Men who walked into a room as if every chair had been built for them, and every person in it was already deciding how much fear to show. Salvatore Greco was worse because he did not need to announce danger. He brought it in with silence. 3 black SUVs rolled up outside the windows, their headlights cutting across the wet sidewalk. 2 men in black coats came in first, scanning the diner without moving their heads much. They were real. Nora knew that before she knew their names. Real security never stared at the thing they were guarding. They watched reflections, exits, hands, the loose space around doorways. The first one had a small scar at the side of his neck and kept his right hand empty. The second one lifted his chin once at Gus in the kitchen and once at the restroom hallway, polite without being soft. The third man came in behind them. Nora noticed him because he tried too hard not to be noticed. He was tall, broad, expensive, and wrong. His coat was black, but the shoulders sat too stiffly. His gloves were leather, but knew enough to squeak when he flexed his fingers. He glanced at Salvatore before he glanced at the room. A rail guard did the opposite. A rail guard knew the boss was still there. The room was the problem. Salvatore Greco entered last. He was 42, maybe 43, with black hair combed back from a face that looked carved rather than aged. He wore a black 3-piece suit under a long wool overcoat, black leather gloves, and a heavy signet ring that caught the diner light when he slid into booth 9. The ring did not look decorative. It looked inherited, sealed, and used to make doors open. His eyes were dark, controlled, and tired in a way Nora recognized from men who did not sleep because sleep meant trusting the world to keep going without them. "Coffee?" the new gloved man said before Nora reached the table. "Not please. Not miss. Not even now." Nora tucked her order pad into her apron and looked at him. "We have 4 kinds." His mouth twitched. "Black. For you. For Mr. Greco." The scarred guard's eyes shifted toward her for half a second. Not a warning. A confirmation. Nora smiled the tired small smile that got waitresses through men who mistook service for surrender. "Mr. Greco can order his own coffee if he wants coffee." The third man leaned back as if amused. "You always talk to paying customers like that?" "Only the ones who haven't paid yet." The 2 college boys in the corner ducked their heads. Mrs. Decker stopped moving her pencil. Gus looked through the pass window with one hand still under the faucet. Salvatore Greco studied Nora. He had not spoken yet. He did not need to. His silence had already wrapped around the table like a second set of walls. Then he said, "Black." His voice was low, even, and almost gentle. That made it more dangerous. Nora nodded once. "Black coffee. No sugar. No cream. Fresh pot or old pot." The third man gave a short laugh. "Does this look like a table that drinks old coffee?" Nora kept her eyes on Salvatore. "I asked him." Something moved at the corner of Salvatore's mouth. It was not a smile. It was the idea of one being considered and dismissed. "Fresh," he said. Nora went behind the counter, lifted the chipped blue coffee pot from its warmer, and checked the level. The pot had a crack in the enamel near the handle shaped like a crescent moon. It had belonged to the diner longer than Nora had. Customers complained about the chip. Regulars asked for it. The blue pot poured cleaner than the new steel one and caught reflections in its curved side, which had saved Nora from more grabbed wrists and unpaid tabs than anyone would believe. She started a fresh brew anyway. While it ran, she set 3 cups on the counter. 1 white mug with a hairline crack near the rim. 1 heavy brown mug that held heat better. One short water glass half filled from the tap because Salvatore had not asked for water, but the man with the scar kept glancing at his boss's left hand, the one with the ring. People watched pain in different ways. Nora had learned that before she learned algebra. The new gloved man moved while she poured. Not much. Just enough. He reached toward the white mug before Nora had decided which mug would go where. Nora's hand paused on the chipped blue coffee pot. Problem? The man asked. No, Nora said. Just counting. Counting what? How many people at this table know what they're doing? The scarred guard went still. The other real guard, the one standing near the aisle, shifted his weight just enough to block the kitchen sightline from the new man. Salvatore noticed that too. His eyes moved from Nora's hand to the blue pot, then to the man in the new gloves. Nora carried the tray to booth 9. She set the half glass of water at Salvatore's right, the brown mug at the left edge, the white mug in front of the new gloved man. Then she set the chipped blue coffee pot in the center, handle facing herself. Nobody touched anything. You did not pour, Salvatore said. No. Why? The fake guard gave another little laugh, too quick this time. Because she wants attention. Nora looked at him. Because you answered for him before he ordered, reached for the wrong mug before I poured, and stood on his blind side like somebody who learned his job from a photograph. The diner air changed. The trucker woke up in booth 2 and wisely pretended he had not. Rain tapped harder against the window. The neon sign blinked once, painting Salvatore's cheek red, then blue, then normal again. The fake guard's smile disappeared. Watch your mouth. I've been watching yours, Nora said. You've got diner sugar on your glove. His hand curled. Nora lifted the chipped blue coffee pot by the handle and angled it so the curved enamel caught the reflection of the table. You opened a sugar packet while I was at the counter. You were going to sweeten the cup before I poured. Because whoever sent you knows Mr. Greco doesn't let strangers hand him anything. You needed the cup to look like it had been sitting here all along. Salvatore did not look at the cup. He looked at Nora. Think you're tough? He asked. The words were quiet, but they had weight. They were not amusement anymore. They were a test. Maybe a warning. Maybe both. Nora felt every eye in the room land on her shoulders. Her feet hurt. Her back hurt. Her last real meal had been half a grilled cheese stolen from the window when Gus threatened to quit if she did not eat. She had $12 in her wallet, a cracked phone in her locker, and rent due in 4 days. She was very tired of men with clean gloves asking women with dirty aprons to prove they deserved to be heard. Prove it, Salvatore said. Nora turned the pot another inch. In the blue reflection, distorted but clear enough, the fake guard's left cuff showed a pale line where a patch had been removed. A square patch. Security company size. Not family crest size. Not Greco crew size. She had seen that kind of patch on men from Harbor Renewal, the property firm trying to buy every block around Juniper Diner. She set the pot down with a soft ceramic click. Ask him which cup is yours. The fake guard snorted. Black coffee. Brown mug. Nora shook her head once. Wrong. Salvatore's real guards did not move. That was the most frightening part. They trusted their stillness. Nora pointed to the half glass of water. You take water first because your left hand cramps when you remove your gloves. The scarred one noticed. I noticed because he noticed. The coffee goes in the brown mug because it holds heat. The white mug is for men who don't know the house, and you never let an unknown cup sit directly in front of you. The fake guard opened his mouth. Nora cut him off. Also, if he was really yours, he would know you haven't let another person pour your coffee in 9 years. For the first time, Salvatore Greco blinked. The scarred guard's face did not change, but the room felt his attention sharpen. Who told you that? Salvatore asked. Nobody. Nora tapped the order pad tucked into her apron. You came in once before. 8 months ago. Different coat. Same ring. You ordered coffee and didn't drink it. You watched the old waitress pour, then switched your cup with the man across from you. He drank. You didn't. I remember customers who make my floor nervous. The fake guard took one step backward. That was all it took. The real guard by the aisle caught his wrist with one hand, clean and efficient. No shout. No flourish. The scarred guard removed a folded card from the man's inside pocket and placed it on the table without reading it aloud. Salvatore did not look at the card. He kept looking at Nora. "You could have said this before the cup reached the table," he said. "I could have," Nora said. "Why didn't you?" She picked up the white mug and smelled it. Too sweet. Chemical sweet under the sugar. Not enough for a normal customer to notice at 3 in the morning. Enough for a woman who washed mugs until her hands split and knew what cheap sweetener smelled like when it was trying to hide something. Because men like him call women like me dramatic until the evidence is sitting where everyone can see it. The fake guard jerked against the hand holding him. She is guessing. Nora poured the white mug into the sink bucket on her tray. The coffee hit the metal with a bitter, wrong smell that even the college boys recognized. Both of them pushed their fries away. "No," she said. "I am working." The words hung there longer than she meant them to. Salvatore stood. Everyone in the diner remembered at once who he was. The college boys lowered their eyes. Mrs. Decker closed her crossword book. Gus turned off the faucet. The fake guard stopped struggling. Salvatore was tall enough that the vinyl booth seemed childish behind him. His coat fell open around the black waistcoat. The signet ring on his gloved hand flashed once as he adjusted the cuff that did not need adjusting. "Your name," he said. "Nora Wren." "Nora Wren," he repeated, as if filing it somewhere that did not lose things. "How much do I owe you for the coffee I did not drink?" The fake guard made a sound that might have been a laugh if fear had not broken it. Nora picked up her order pad and wrote without looking down. "1 black coffee. Fresh pot. 1 cup contaminated by your problem. 1 table frozen for 15 minutes while my regulars lost their appetite. 1 apology to Gus for making him reach for the panic button. He swears we don't have." Gus swore softly in the kitchen. Salvatore's eyes moved toward the pass window. "Gus. Don't you start with me," Gus called. "I got a grill scraper and arthritis. I am not built for this hour." A real laugh almost escaped Nora. She swallowed it. Salvatore looked back at her. "You want an apology. I want you to understand the bill. Those are not the same. They are in my diner." The scarred guard's eyebrows rose a fraction, then lowered. Salvatore noticed that too. He noticed everything. That was why the false man had needed sugar and arrogance and a waitress to be dismissed. Salvatore reached into his coat. Nora's hand closed around the chipped blue coffee pot before she thought about it. Both real guards saw. So did Salvatore. Slowly, with 2 fingers, he withdrew a black money clip and set several bills on the table. Too many. Ridiculous money for coffee. Enough to make a desperate person quiet. Nora did not touch it. "That is not understanding the bill," she said. No. That is making my table feel cheap." For a second his expression went entirely still. Nora knew she had crossed a line. Not the polite line. That one had disappeared when his false guard tried to sweeten a cup. She had crossed the line that powerful men drew around the methods that had always worked for them. Money. Silence. Removal. Replacement. Pay for the inconvenience. Pay for the fear. Pay for the woman to stop being in the way. Salvatore slid the money back into the clip. "Then tell me the amount." Nora looked at the table. Coffee rings, sugar dust, 3 untouched cups, 1 chipped blue pot, 1 folded card from a man who should not have been standing near him. $4 for the coffee. $2 for the water you did not ask for. Nothing for the warning. I do not charge men for deciding to live. The scarred guard looked down. Salvatore held her gaze for a long moment. $4, he said. 6. I said 2 for the water. I did not drink the water. You needed it. The corner of his mouth moved again. This time it stayed half a second longer. $6. He placed a 10 on the table. Nora took it, opened the register, counted $4 and change, and placed the coins beside the half glass of water. "Receipt?" she asked. "Yes." She wrote it by hand because the printer had been dead since Tuesday. 1 black coffee. 1 water. $6. She tore the slip cleanly and put it on the table. Salvatore picked it up like it mattered. The fake guard was taken outside through the front door. Not the kitchen, because Nora said nobody bled lies through Gus's mop path. No one argued. The 2 SUVs shifted positions. A 4th car appeared from nowhere and disappeared with the false man in the back seat. It was all quiet enough that Mrs. Decker later told people she had seen more noise at the library. Salvatore did not leave. That was Nora's second mistake of the night. Assuming men like him moved on once the threat was removed. He sat back down in booth 9 after his guards checked the room twice. He removed his gloves and placed them beside the receipt. His left hand flexed once, the fingers stiff near the knuckle under the signet ring. Nora watched despite herself. He noticed. "You said I needed water." "You do." "Why?" "Your left hand hurts. You hide it badly when you're tired. Dehydration makes cramping worse." "Are you a doctor?" "No. A waitress. We notice when men pretend they are not in pain because they tip worse when they get embarrassed." The scarred guard coughed into his fist. It might have been a laugh, but he had the discipline to make it sound like dust. Salvatore looked at the chipped blue coffee pot. "Pour." Nora did not move. "No," she said. That word landed harder than the accusation had. The rail guard near the aisle turned his head toward her. Gus whispered something unhelpful in the kitchen. Mrs. Decker stopped pretending to read. Salvatore's eyes narrowed. "No. No. You poured for everyone else in this room. Everyone else in this room asked for coffee, not obedience." The scarred guard looked at his boss, then away. "Smart man." Salvatore leaned back in the booth. "You think I am asking for obedience? You said pour. It is a word. So is please." Rain dragged silver lines down the window behind him. Outside, his SUVs idled like patient animals. Inside, the diner smelled of coffee and wet wool, and the wrong sweetness still clinging to the tray bucket. Nora expected anger. She had braced for it. She knew how to survive men's anger. Step back if there was room. Step in if there wasn't. Keep your voice low. Never let your hands shake where they can see. Salvatore surprised her by looking at the chipped blue coffee pot instead of at her face. "Please," he said. The word was rough, as if it had not been used much. Nora poured. Not into the white mug. Not into the brown one the false guard had guessed. She poured into a clean green mug from the counter, one Gus used for oatmeal when his blood sugar dipped. She set it near Salvatore's right hand, not in front of him, handle turned outward so he could decide whether to touch it. He stared at the mug. "Why green?" "Because nobody at this table watched me choose it." "You did." "I don't count as nobody." His fingers rested beside the mug but did not close around it. "When did you learn to see rooms this way, Nora Wren?" "When I learned they could hurt you if you didn't." He looked at her then, and the hard interest in his face shifted into something quieter. Still dangerous but no longer amused. The diner felt less like a battlefield and more like a room full of people who had survived long enough to recognize another survivor. "You have family?" he asked. "Gus will claim me on his taxes if I let him. Mrs. Decker steals my fries and calls that mentorship. Eli comes in at 5 to wash dishes and pretends he isn't sleeping in his cousin's truck. That's enough family for a place that closes never. Blood family." No. The answer was too quick. She hated that. He heard it. Of course he heard it. "Then you understand why some men build walls." Nora wiped the counter with a clean rag, because her hands needed work. "I understand why people build walls. I do not understand why they act shocked when nobody brings them coffee inside." The scarred guard made the dust cough again. Salvatore's mouth softened. Not a smile. Something more expensive. He did not drink the coffee, but he did not push it away. That was how the night should have ended. The dangerous man spared, the false guard gone, the diner alive and buzzing again. Salvatore should have walked back into his black SUV. Nora should have gone home at 5, soaked her feet in the bathroom sink, slept 3 hours and returned for the lunch shift. Instead, a city inspector came at 6:12 in the morning. He wore a navy coat with rain on the shoulders and carried a clipboard too clean for someone inspecting anything. Behind him stood 2 men from Harbor Renewal, the property company whose signs had started appearing on boarded windows up and down the block. Their smiles were bright in the way new knives were bright. Nora saw the square patch line on one man's old jacket. Her stomach went cold. Salvatore was still in booth 9. He had not drunk the coffee. He had watched 3 cups, 2 exits, 1 waitress, and the green mug for nearly 3 hours. His guards looked like men who could stand forever if told to. The inspector cleared his throat. "Juniper Diner?" Gus came out of the kitchen with a towel over his shoulder. No, this is Buckingham Palace. We just like pancakes. Nora stepped in front of him. Can I help you? Emergency health and safety review. The inspector flipped a page. We received a complaint. At 6 in the morning? Complaints arrive when they arrive. Nora looked at the harbor renewal men. They looked at the chipped blue coffee pot sitting beside Salvatore's untouched mug, and pretended not to recognize it. What kind of complaint? She asked. Contaminated beverage service. Unsafe chemical handling. Alleged hazardous coffee. The college boys had left. The trucker had left. Mrs. Decker had not. She closed her crossword book with the solemnity of a judge. Gus muttered, "They cannot be serious." Nora felt Salvatore's attention sharpen behind her, but he did not speak. For once he waited. That mattered more than she wanted it to. The inspector took a sealed plastic bag from his satchel. Inside was a white mug. Not the same mug Nora had poured into the tray bucket. Similar enough to fool someone who did not spend their life washing dishes. A white mug with a blue line near the handle. Juniper Diner did not own mugs with blue lines. This was submitted as evidence, he said. Nora almost laughed. Came out as a breath. That's not ours. It was identified as yours. By who? Anonymous complaint. The harbor renewal men smiled. Salvatore's voice came from booth 9. Careful. Everyone looked at him. He had not raised his voice. He had not stood. He had not made a threat. Yet the inspector's fingers tightened on the clipboard hard enough to bend the paper. Nora turned slightly. I can handle this. The words were out before she knew she had decided to say them. The room held its breath. Salvatore looked at her for a long moment. A man used to command being interrupted by a woman with a coffee pot. A man who could end the inspection with one phone call, one name, one pressure point. A man who knew how to solve problems in ways that left no receipt. Then he leaned back. I know, he said. Quietly. Publicly. Without taking the room back from her. Nora's chest tightened so fast she had to look away. She walked behind the counter and picked up the chipped blue coffee pot. The inspector frowned. Ma'am, don't tamper with potential evidence. I'm not. Nora set the pot on the counter under the fluorescent light. I'm showing you ours. The enamel chip near the handle formed a crescent. The bottom had a coffee stain ring Gus had tried and failed to scrub away for 5 years. The spout leaned slightly left, which meant it dripped if you rushed the pour. The diner had 3 white mugs with hairline cracks, 4 brown mugs, 6 green mugs, and no white mugs with blue lines. I wash every cup in this place, Nora said. Gus dries the pots badly and stacks the soup bowls wrong. Mrs. Decker complains when we change mug colors. Eli broke the last blue-lined mug before he was born, because we never had any. Mrs. Decker lifted one finger. I would have complained. The inspector's mouth tightened. That does not disprove the complaint. No, Nora said. But this does. She took her order pad from her apron and flipped to the carbon copy under the page she had written hours earlier. 1 black coffee. 1 water. $6. She placed it beside Salvatore's receipt still on the table. There was no served cup, she said. He did not drink. I poured the compromised cup into my tray bucket, which Gus dumped in the grease sink while cursing loud enough to wake the freezer. The man who brought the contaminated cup was not mine, not his, and not smart enough to know our mugs. One harbor renewal man scoffed. Convenient story. Nora looked at him. Your left cuff has the same patch line as the man who came in at 3. His face changed. That was all Salvatore needed to see. The rail guard near the door stepped between the harbor renewal men and the exit. Not touching. Just existing in the doorway with the calm patience of granite. The inspector took a step back. This is becoming inappropriate. It became inappropriate when you tried to close my diner with a mug you bought elsewhere, Nora said. Your diner? Gus said. Yes. Nora turned. He looked embarrassed and stubborn, which was how Gus looked when telling the truth cost him something. I was going to tell you after breakfast rush. Papers are in the office. My nephew does not want the place. I am old. You know where the breaker trips in which freezer lies. You know the regulars. You know the difference between my bad moods and my chest pains. It's your diner if you sign before I lose my nerve. Nora stared at him. The whole room blurred for half a second. Not tears. She did not have time for tears. Something bigger and less convenient. Gus, she whispered. Don't make it emotional, he snapped. I am trying to retire with dignity. Mrs. Decker sniffed. You own one good shirt. Dignity left years ago. The laugh that went through the diner was small, shaky, and real. Salvatore watched Nora receive a future she had not dared to ask for. He watched her hand tighten around the chipped blue coffee pot. He watched her choose not to cry in front of men who would use tears as a discount. Then the harbor renewal man said, That building is already under review for redevelopment. The quiet broke. Nora looked back at him. Not by you. You have no idea what you're standing in front of. Salvatore stood. This time Nora did not tell him she could handle it. She had handled the lie. The threat belonged to the man who had brought 3 SUVs to a diner at 3 in the morning, and still been nearly undone by 1 fake guard and 1 cup of coffee. But Salvatore surprised her again. He did not threaten the harbor renewal men. He did not order his guards to move. He did not list names, crimes, or favors owed. He picked up the handwritten receipt and placed it in front of the inspector. I paid $6, he said. There is a record. There is a witness. There is a waitress whose memory is better than your paperwork. If this complaint continues, it will do so in daylight, with cameras, signatures, and every person who touched that false mug named on the first page. The inspector swallowed. And, Salvatore added, his voice even softer, you will apologize to the owner. The word owner hit Nora somewhere under the ribs. The inspector looked at Gus. Gus pointed at Nora. Not me. I retired 30 seconds ago. The inspector's face reddened. Miss Wren, I apologize for any procedural confusion. Nora held his gaze. That's not an apology. That's a fog machine. Salvatore's mouth moved again. The inspector tried again. I apologize for bringing an unverified complaint into your diner. And for implying your service was unsafe without evidence. Nora nodded. Better. Mrs. Decker whispered. Needs work. The inspector and the harbor renewal men left with less dignity than they had entered. The real guards did not touch them. That restraint felt more frightening than force. When the door closed, the diner exhaled. Nora set the chipped blue coffee pot down because her hand had begun to shake. Salvatore saw. Of course he saw. He did not comment. Office, Gus said gruffly. Before I change my mind. I cannot sign a diner into existence between coffee refills. You can sign before the lunch rush. That's how diners work. Nora looked at Salvatore. She did not know why. Maybe because he had heard the word owner before she had believed it. Maybe because he had let her handle the inspector until the threat became bigger than paper. Maybe because his green mug still sat untouched on the table, and he had not made that her failure. I need 5 minutes, she said. Gus grunted and disappeared into the office. Nora went to the back hallway, past the freezer that lied, the shelf of mismatched mugs, and the calendar with all the wrong holidays circled because Gus reused old calendars until the pictures came back around. She stopped by the employee lockers and pressed both palms flat against the cool metal. She had wanted a place for so long that wanting had become embarrassing. She had wanted walls that did not belong to a landlord waiting for weakness. She had wanted a stove she could fix without asking permission. A schedule that did not change because someone richer got bored. A place where Eli could wash dishes and then sleep in the office without pretending he was fine. She had wanted Juniper Diner to survive because if a place like this could survive, maybe ordinary people were not always temporary. Footsteps stopped behind her. Not Gus. Too quiet. If you offer to buy it, Nora said without turning around, I will hit you with the coffee pot. The chipped blue one? The heavy steel one? Salvatore was silent long enough that she turned. He stood at the end of the hallway without his gloves. That made him look more human and somehow more dangerous. His left hand hung stiffly at his side. His signet ring looked too heavy for the finger wearing it. I was going to offer a lawyer, he said. Nora folded her arms. Same problem if the lawyer comes with ownership. It would come with a chair, a phone, and no claim. Why? Because I owe you a coffee I can drink. That should not have moved her. It did anyway. You do not owe me that. I do. I warned you because it was right, not because I wanted a debt. I know. His admission unsettled her more than argument would have. Nora leaned back against the lockers. Men like you always know how to owe in ways that turn into ownership. Salvatore looked down at his bare left hand. The hallway light made the scar at the base of his thumb visible now. Old injury. Badly healed. Maybe that was why the guard had watched the water. Maybe that was why Salvatore never let cups appear where he had not chosen them. 9 years ago, he said. Someone I trusted poured coffee into a cup I had used every morning since I was 20. I woke up 36 hours later with my brother dead, and half my men wearing another man's ring. Nora said nothing. Since then, he continued, no one chooses my cup. No one pours unless I watch. No one stands on my left unless they have earned the right to see where I am weak. His voice did not break. It would have been easier if it had. Nora knew what to do with obvious pain. This was worse. A man laying one controlled piece of himself on the floor between them and waiting to see whether she would step on it. Why tell me? Because you saw it without using it. Nora's throat tightened. The diner sounds continued around them. Gus slamming a drawer, Mrs. Decker asking for more toast, rain against the back door. Ordinary life refusing to stop for extraordinary confessions. I am not your guard, Nora said. No. I am not your employee. No. I am not moving into some marble tower because you decided a waitress is interesting. No. You agree too fast. I am trying not to get hit with a coffee pot. Despite herself, she laughed once. Small. Tired. Real. Salvatore's eyes changed when he heard it. Not softer exactly. Focused differently. As if he had been handed something fragile, and did not yet know the rules for holding it. The lawyer will be here at 9, he said. If you want him, he stays. If you do not, he leaves. He will bill me because I asked him to come. He will answer to you because it is your diner. And what do you get? He glanced toward the dining room. A table where false men are noticed before they reach me. That sounds like ownership. Then make the rule. Nora looked at him. You want rules? She asked. From you? Apparently. She pushed off the lockers and walked past him into the dining room. He followed, not too close. That mattered too. At booth 9, the green mug waited where she had placed it. The coffee was cold now. The chipped blue coffee pot sat on the counter, half full and cooling. Nora picked up the pot. The diner watched without pretending not to. Rule 1, she said. You do not buy the diner. Agreed. Rule 2. Your men do not stand in the kitchen unless Gus invites them. Gus shouted. Never. Rule 2, Salvatore said. Understood. Rule 3. You do not send money to solve something that needs an apology. His gaze moved to the receipt beside his gloves. Understood. Rule 4. If you want coffee here, you ask. The scarred guard looked down again. Salvatore did not. Nora, he said. That was not asking. He breathed out slowly through his nose. Nora Wren, will you pour me coffee? The words should have been simple. In any other mouth they would have been. From him they changed the room. Nora held the chipped blue coffee pot over the green mug. Do you trust me to choose the cup? The question was not about coffee, and every person in the diner knew it. Salvatore looked at the green mug, then at his bare hand, then at her. I am trying. That was not romantic. It was not smooth. It was better. Nora poured. Steam rose between them, softening the hard diner light. Salvatore closed his fingers around the handle. His left hand cramped once. He did not hide it in time. Nora pretended not to see until he looked grateful enough for the pretending that she had to look away. He lifted the cup. The real guards went still. Gus went still. Mrs. Decker put one hand over her mouth. Salvatore took one sip. Nothing happened. No collapse. No betrayal. No brother dead on a floor years away. Just coffee from an old diner at dawn, poured by a woman who knew the difference between service and surrender. His eyes closed for half a second. When they opened, Nora saw the first uncontrolled thing in him. Not weakness. Relief. He set the cup down carefully. It is terrible. Gus yelled. Then leave. Nora smiled. It's been on the warmer too long. No, Salvatore said. It is terrible because I have not tasted coffee without fear in 9 years. The room went quiet again, but not like before. This quiet held. At 9 the lawyer came. He was small, sharp, and terrified of Nora within 6 minutes. He read Gus's papers twice, found 3 problems, fixed 2, and told Nora the third could be fixed by Friday if Gus stopped keeping tax records in a cookie tin. Gus said the cookie tin had worked since 1988. The lawyer said 1988 was not a filing system. Mrs. Decker applauded. Salvatore stayed at booth 9 drinking bad coffee slowly. At noon, Juniper Diner filled with rain-bright customers who knew something had happened but not enough to ask directly. Nora worked the counter, signed papers between orders, and refused Salvatore's help when a box of napkins needed moving. He did not insist. One of his guards moved the box after Gus barked that the man was blocking the pie case and should make himself useful if he planned to loom. At 3, Harbor Renewal sent a man with a bouquet and a settlement offer. Nora handed him the bouquet back. Flowers are for tables, not threats. Salvatore watched from booth 9. You are enjoying this, she said after the man left. A little. Careful. Very. By evening, the false complaint had turned into 3 signed statements, 1 city review postponed indefinitely, and 1 rumor moving down the block that Juniper Diner had become a poor place to lie. Eli arrived for his dish shift, saw Salvatore Greco in booth 9, and dropped an entire crate of spoons. Nora helped him pick them up before he could apologize himself into a puddle. He's not here for you, she told him quietly. Who is he here for? Nora looked at Salvatore, who was pretending not to listen and failing. Coffee. Eli looked at the chipped blue coffee pot. That coffee. Apparently. Should I make better coffee? No. Then he'll come back more often. From booth 9, Salvatore said. I can hear you. Good, Nora said. For the first time that day, Eli smiled. The dinner rush tested her harder than the fake guard had. Dangerous men were simple in one way. They wanted fear, respect, money, silence, or all 4 in different proportions. A diner at 6:30 wanted 12 things at once. Mrs. Decker wanted her toast darker but not burned. The trucker from booth 2 wanted the coffee refilled without being asked because he was ashamed of how often he needed it. A mother with twins wanted pancakes cut into strips and a side of applesauce that was not on the menu. The college boys came back with 3 more friends and kept looking at Salvatore as if he were a dare. Gus burned 1 omelet, blamed the pan, then blamed retirement, then blamed Nora for inheriting the pan. Nora handled it. She slid plates without spilling syrup. She caught Eli before he stacked wet mugs on dry shelves. She told the college boys that staring cost extra, and made them laugh hard enough to stop doing it. She cut the twins' pancakes herself because their mother had the hollow-eyed look of a woman who had not eaten sitting down in months. She wrote new prep notes on the back of old receipts and stuck them above the coffee station. Through all of it, Salvatore stayed in booth 9 and did the most useful thing a powerful man could do in a room that did not belong to him. He did not interfere. Once, one of his guards started to stand when a customer raised his voice about cold fries. Salvatore lifted 2 fingers from the table. The guard sat back down. Nora crossed the room, took the plate, looked at the fries and said, They're cold because you spent 5 minutes explaining how hot they should be. I'll bring new ones if you stop punishing everyone for your own speech. The man stared at her. Then he laughed, embarrassed, and said sorry. Salvatore watched that as if it were a different kind of combat. Another time, Eli dropped a glass near the kitchen door. The sound cracked through the diner, sharp enough to make Salvatore's left hand clamp around the green mug. Nora saw the reaction. So did the scarred guard. No one else did. She walked over, handed Eli a broom, then placed a clean saucer beside Salvatore without a word. His fingers loosened. On the saucer was 1 sugar packet, unopened. He looked up. Proof, Nora said quietly, that not everything sealed is safe, and not everything ordinary is dangerous. He stared at the packet for a long moment, then pushed it back toward her with the tip of 1 bare finger. Keep it. Afraid of sugar? Cautious of symbols. That's fair. Diner sugar has a lot to answer for. The almost smile returned. By 8, Gus had stopped pretending he was not watching them. Mrs. Decker had stopped pretending harder. Eli, who had spent the first hour terrified of the Mafia boss, accidentally refilled Salvatore's water glass and nearly swallowed his own tongue when he realized what he had done. Salvatore looked at the glass. Eli turned white. "Sir, I am so sorry, I didn't mean dash. Did Nora tell you to refill water when glasses fall below half?" Eli blinked. "Yes." "Then you followed the owner." Nora, halfway to the counter with 3 plates on one arm, stopped. Eli looked at her. The word owner moved through him the way sunlight moved through a window. It made him stand taller. Not because he owned anything, but because the person who had told him he mattered now had a title dangerous men used in public. "Yes," Eli said, steadier. "I followed the owner." Nora kept walking because if she stopped too long, the plates would shake. At 9:15, the mother with twins paid with crumpled bills and left a note on the napkin. "Thank you for cutting the pancakes." Nora tucked it beside Salvatore's receipt, not because they were the same kind of thing, but because both proved something had happened in the room that could have gone another way. Salvatore saw where she put it. "You keep records of kindness too," he said when she passed his table. "Kindness is harder to prove than fraud. Yet you file it. Someone has to." He looked at the chipped blue coffee pot on the counter, then back at her. "That is why he gave you the diner." Nora's first instinct was to deflect, to say Gus was tired or foolish or allergic to paperwork. Instead, she let the words land. She let herself be seen standing in the middle of a room she had held together with bad coffee, sharp eyes, and mercy disguised as sarcasm. "Maybe," she said. Salvatore nodded once, like the answer mattered. That was when Nora understood the shape of the thing forming. Not safety exactly. Safety was too clean a word for black SUVs outside and men who could make city inspectors sweat. Not love, not yet, though the diner had started making little assumptions around them in the way old places did when they wanted a story. It was a rule. The most dangerous man in the city had entered her diner expecting obedience. He had found a woman with tired feet, a sharp eye, and a chipped blue coffee pot. He had laughed when she warned him. He had told her to prove it. So she had. Not with fists. Not with blood. Not by becoming the kind of violence that had frightened her for years. She had proved it by knowing her work. By seeing the wrong cup. By refusing the wrong money. By making a man who never drank from another person's hand ask before she poured. At closing, which was a lie because Juniper Diner did not close, Nora put a handwritten sign under the register. New owner. Same bad coffee. Gus objected to the word bad. Mrs. Decker said truth in advertising was important. Eli asked if he still had a job. Nora told him he had a raise if she could make the numbers behave. He hugged her so fast she barely had time to brace. Salvatore stood to leave just after midnight. His guards went first. Real guards. The scarred one paused at the counter. "Thank you," he said. Nora nodded. "Watch the left side." His eyes flicked to Salvatore, then back to her. "I do. Watch the cup too." "Now I will." Salvatore placed a folded $10 bill on the counter. Nora looked at it. "Coffee is $6. $4 for the coffee," he said. $2 for the water. $4 for the lesson. I said I don't charge for deciding to live. Then for the terrible coffee. She took the 10, opened the register and gave him $4 back anyway. He accepted the change this time. "Tomorrow," he said. "May I come back?" Nora leaned one hip against the counter. "For coffee. For coffee. Ask correctly." The dangerous man in the black coat stood in the bright ordinary diner, rain silvering the window behind him, and did exactly what no one in that room would have believed 12 hours earlier. He asked, "Nora Wren, may I come back tomorrow for bad coffee from the chipped blue pot?" Mrs. Decker whispered, "Say yes. I want to see what happens." Nora did not look away from Salvatore. "You may come back." His face changed in that almost smile again. "Thank you. But if you bring another fake guard into my diner, I am charging you for emotional damages." "How much?" "Depends how annoying he is." "Fair." He turned toward the door, then stopped with one hand on the frame. "Nora." "Yes." I did laugh. She knew what he meant. "Yes," she said. "You did. I was wrong." The apology was not polished. It did not kneel. It did not beg to be admired. It simply stood there, plain in public where everyone could see it. Nora picked up the chipped blue coffee pot and held it against her hip. Come back tomorrow and prove you learned. Salvatore Greco looked at the pot, then at her. I will. When he left, the black SUVs pulled away one by one, quieter than they had arrived. The diner lights reflected in the wet street. Nora stood behind the counter with the chipped blue coffee pot in her hands and watched the most feared man in the city leave without taking anything that was not given. Gus came out of the kitchen with 2 slices of pie. Well, he said, that was stupid. Which part? All of it. Nora laughed because her feet hurt, because she owned a diner, because the coffee was bad, because fear had not won every room tonight. She poured herself half a cup from the chipped blue pot and made a face when she tasted it. Salvatore had been right. It was terrible, but it was hers. And tomorrow, if the Mafia boss came back, he would ask before she poured. That was not safety. Not yet. But it was a beginning with rules, a receipt, and a chipped blue coffee pot everyone in Juniper Diner would remember. Sometimes the smallest proof in the room was not a weapon. Sometimes it was a waitress who noticed the wrong cup. Sometimes it was a dangerous man learning that trust, like coffee, could not be taken hot from another person's hand. It had to be offered. It had to be asked for. And if Nora Wren poured it, he had better be ready to drink it exactly as she gave it.